In parts 1 and 2, we talked about the unfair taxation of Native Americans in Southern California in the early 1850s, leading to rebellion, ambushes, arrests, and the final Battle of Coyote Canyon. Upon learning of Chief Antonio Guerra's capture, his warriors dispersed, and Antonio announced the war was over. Guerra's son, after receiving a message from his captured father, surrendered to Northern authorities. All of those natives deemed to have taken part in killing Americans, including Antonio Guerra Jr., were executed in the field. 2 days after Christmas Day, when 4 natives were executed at Middle Willows, Guerra's son was executed at Chino in San Bernardino County. Brought back to San Diego to stand trial, the renegade whaler Bill Marshall was accused of having assured Guerra that if he led a rebellion against the Americans, he would be aided by the Californios and Mexicans. After a trial in San Diego, Marshall and an Indian, Juan Verdugo, were sentenced to be hanged. William Marshall and Juan Verdugo were executed in the plaza for their part in instigating the Indian Uprising. The plaque on the grave in Old Town San Diego reads, Bill Marshall and Juan Verdugo, hanged December 13, 1851. Bill Marshall was an American man married to the daughter of a local Indian chieftain. He was a renegade sailor from Providence, Rhode Island, who had deserted from a whaling ship at San Diego in 1844. He had taken up habitation with the Indians. He took an active part in the Garra Indian Uprising in 1851. Bill Marshall and the Indian Juan Verdugo were caught and brought back to San Diego to be promptly tried by court-martial. Marshall was found guilty and thus sentenced to hang, as was Juan Verdugo. The Indian acknowledged his guilt, but Marshall insisted he was innocent. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a scaffold was erected near the old Catholic cemetery, the men placed in a wagon, the ropes adjusted about their necks, and the wagon moved on, leaving them to strangle to death. During his trial, Guerra denied plotting an uprising. His greatest complaint was that he and his people were being taxed by local and state officials without having any rights extended to them. After he was found guilty and sentenced to execution, Guerra acknowledged that he had induced the tribes to unite against the Americans, and that he had urged that a party of 400 be sent against Fort Yuma, and then they were to join in a general descent on the settlements. On the day of his execution, January 10, 1852, 4:30 p.m., Guerra stood at the end of his open grave in the cemetery. In the presence of more than 400 people, he faced the firing squad. Moments before his death, he said, "Gentlemen, I ask your pardon for all my offenses, and give mine in return." He kissed his crucifix and met his fate. Guerra was shot by a firing squad on January 10, 1852. The execution of Guerra ended the last Indian uprising in Southern California. Sheriff Herazthi, a native of Hungary, left San Diego in 1852 when he was elected to the California legislature. He later gained fame as one of the founders of California's commercial wine industry. Major Heinzelman went on to fight for the Union in the American Civil War, where he even ended up facing his former subordinate, John Magruder, who fought for the Confederacy. Edward Fitzgerald Beale was appointed Indian agent for San Diego, but little provision was made for these Native Americans at this time. They were subjected to frequent abuse, including sexual assault, prostitution, and the availability of liquor. After 1891, the Indians were confined to Los Coyotes Reservation. In 1916, a flash flood washed away what remained of both the village sites and the graves of the Los Coyotes Indians. The land they had lived on for countless generations, including the medicinal hot springs and the village called Cupa, was controlled and used for the exclusion of the Cupins by Americans who displaced them. The life and sacrifice of Antonio Garra has been celebrated for the last couple of years in San Diego. The website for the event states, Antonio Garra was a Native American patriot who fought for Southern California and Northern Baja tribal rights and sovereignty. He was illegally executed on January 10, 1852, by the citizens of California during a mass anti-Native American hysteria at the beginning of statehood. I don't agree with everything in this description, but out of respect, I'll just say that it was not just anti-Native American hysteria. Innocent people were ambushed and killed because Garra and his group disagreed with our government's decisions. In Old Town San Diego, some of the gift shops offer a t-shirt that shows the same anti-European immigration sentiment. Competition for resources between groups of people is inevitable. Garra missed a chance to end the disagreement peacefully and lead his people to better relations with the new California government. We'll never know what could have happened. But it is ironic how the Native Americans fought against taxation without representation, against the same government that went to war with the same justification just 75 years earlier. We cannot celebrate the national experience without coming to honest terms with the treatment of the indigenous people who have lived here for centuries. And in that vein, we should celebrate the life of Antonio Garra. In another time, another place, and with paler skin, Garra, a strong traditional leader among his Luiseño people, might have been a symbol of patriotism, of resistance against unjust taxes and oppressive government. So in conclusion, I'll say rest in peace to Antonio Garra and everyone else who was involved. Thank you for watching. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel for new videos every week or two, and see the description below for a list of books and online resources featured in this video.